Severe thunderstorms are moving out of North Carolina but haven't cleared South Carolina yet. We'll show you that in just a couple of minutes, but first it's time for our tropical update with Steve Lyons.
Well, thank you, Jill. We've got some interesting weather out there in the Gulf of Mexico I want to tell you about. You can see here on our large-scale loop a wave moving through the islands here that's of some interest. And of course, out here we have our new tropical depression here that may become a tropical storm here very shortly. Let's get the latest information on that. Here's Tropical Depression 6 as of 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time, 25.6 north, 94.8 west. That's about 220 miles to the southeast of Corpus Christi, Texas. Winds are 35 miles an hour, so just about 5 miles per hour under tropical storm force. And moving to the west-northwest at about 7 miles per hour. So generally heading toward the South Texas coast here, and we'll see that very shortly. But first, we do have tropical storm advisories out here, tropical storm warnings from Highland, Texas, all the way down to Brownsville. The reason for the tropical storm warnings is because National Hurricane Center expects tropical storm force winds to affect this portion of the coast within the next 24 hours. So the forecast is for a tendency toward tropical storm, which is only 5 miles per hour or more. So we'll have to keep an eye on this system very, very closely. And as you can see here, a lot of thunderstorm activity out in the Gulf of Mexico, and all of this moisture is going to be pushing on to the northwest slowly through the night. We're going to have a lot of shower activity. You can see the low-level cloud edge here just over the Brownsville area coming back out into the Gulf of Mexico. The general center of circulation is here, but that's not to be paid attention to too much yet in a system this week. You look at the entire feature and the general motion toward the northwest. So we'll have to keep an eye on this very, very carefully. Here's our visible satellite image, and you can see here's Brownsville here, Corpus up the coast, Galveston farther north, Louisiana and mouth of Mississippi farther up this way. And you can see the circulation generally in this area right in through here, moving to the northwest rather slowly. Still rather ill-defined, so we don't have to worry about it too much. More of a rain producer right now than anything else, but the potential for tropical storm development is very, very strong, and it's not impossible for it to become a hurricane, although we think it's going to run out of room as it moves generally toward the South Texas coast. And you can see a lot of rain showers moving in a clockwise or a counterclockwise motion around the low pressure system here, with some heavy showers moving toward the Brownsville area, which is typically dry this time of year. So a lot of rain shower activity out there. Now here's the system here, our tropical depression. We have a big trough of low pressure in the upper part of the atmosphere sitting right down through here over Hispaniola and down toward the islands here. You can see a lot of shower activity down here is associated primarily with that upper level low pressure system, so we're not too worried about this. But we have a lot of very strong winds coming across the eastern Pacific through the Central America coast. And that's producing a secondary area of deep thunderstorm activity we'll have to keep our eye on here. We could potentially get some more development down here, or development that would be consistent with moving into this one. So that whole area in the western Gulf of Mexico is of some concern, and we need to watch that. They had a big surge of easterly flow the last few days, and actually there's some African dust sitting out in here. Some of the islands here will experience that tomorrow. And on the southwestern side of that African dust plume, we have an area of disturbed weather here, tropical wave producing a lot of shower activity over the islands here. That'll persist for the next 12 hours or so. You can see these showers dangling back here as it moves into the Caribbean Sea. We don't expect development from it, but you could potentially have a lot of rain shower activity. Elsewhere, a big tropical wave has come off the African coast the last 24 hours, and this is actually a low pressure center at the surface. Cape Verde Islands here. We'll have to keep an eye on that the next 24 hours as well. We have Tropical Storm Javier, 20.7 north, 111.7 west, and right now winds are 45 miles per hour, and it's moving to the west-northwest at 3. Very, very slow motion there. We'll have to keep an eye on that. The good thing here is the circulation center is here and all the thunderstorms are off to the west. So we're in very, very good shape there. It doesn't look like it's going to develop. Well, let's get back to Jill and see what she's got going on across the country.
Okay, thanks, Steve. In the next segment here, Weather Center will be telling you about this blast of cooler air heading all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Should even cool you off in Dallas and Oklahoma City, but it also has some strong thunderstorms with it. We'll check those out in South Carolina coming up next.
After a day of damaging storms, fall is in the air in the Northeast. We'll tell you how low the temperatures may go and what's in store where you are, just ahead on Weather Center.
Some of us know it will be all right, even when bad things happen. because we have someone to help see us through
Across
it.
the lower 48, we've got a huge influx of cool Canadian air moving in. Ahead of that, much like we saw yesterday with big thunderstorms in the northeast, we're getting a few of those in the southeast. We'll show you where coming up, and a little severe weather in the west as well. Right now, though, we want to hone in on the tropics and take a look at our tropical update. There is the big picture, and what we're looking at here, folks, is a tropical depression newly formed. That's tropical depression number 6 in the Atlantic right here. Now, there's some interesting aspects to this whole situation, which we'll get into more in a moment, but I didn't want to point out that the Caribbean not looking too bad. We do have a bit of a tropical wave moving through the Leeward Islands with some heavier downpours there. And way off the picture here, a rather significant tropical wave has moved off the African coast, which we'll get a look at as well. All right, let's get to our tropical depression number 6. 25.5 north, and this is as of the intermediate advisory, and we're getting these advisories every 3 hours now because there are tropical storm warnings up, and we'll show you those along the Texas Gulf Coast. Even though this is not a tropical storm yet, there are warnings up because it is expected to get to tropical storm strength. 240 miles southeast of Corpus Christi, Texas, and to be honest with you, that's kind of a guesstimate, if you will, at this point, because it's a very broad, ill-defined area as reported back by the Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft. Nearly stationary, not moving too much right now, but we expect a slow west-northwest drift to ensue here. Highest winds 35 miles per hour. Wouldn't take much, another 5 miles an hour, and it would be classified as a tropical storm. High Island, Texas, down to Brownsville, there are the tropical storm warnings, meaning tropical storm force conditions expected within the next 24 hours. In other words, winds over 39 miles an hour. And there are some coastal flood advisories. The flow already around the tropical depression, and the difference in pressure between that low, the depression, and the big high, which is moving into the east, well, that is creating quite a pressure gradient, if you will. Very high winds coming in off of the Gulf of Mexico, kind of at an angle here, but piling the water up a bit from the lower Atchafalaya River Basin all the way over to High Island, Texas, including the mouth of the Sabine River there, Sabine Pass. So watch out for some slight coastal flooding in that area. Well, there's a visible satellite picture, which we can't use because it has gotten dark. But there you can see before it fades away, there was plenty of cloud cover here. I hope, there it is, the infrared picture, which we'll take a close look at here. Again, a very ill-defined center, which is somewhere right in this area here. But actually what's going on is there may actually be a secondary center down here to the south, one that is separate from where the depression is classified now. So two areas we'll really need to watch closely. Most, if not all, of the convection or thunderstorm action with this northern center is off toward the east, so not a whole lot going on along the immediate Texas coast at the present time. By the way, if this does strengthen, the depression does, and becomes a tropical storm, its name would be Francis. All right. Here's a look at the radar, and again, there are scattered showers and thunderstorms roaming around the periphery of the depression as the moisture is coming on shore. It looks like it's enhanced a little bit here along Padre Island, south of Corpus Christi on down toward the Brownsville area. But a lot of the rain isn't all that terribly heavy yet, but it could get that way. As I mentioned, the rest of the Caribbean not looking too bad at the present time. The exception to that, as we head out toward the Leeward and Windward Islands, pretty good significant tropical wave moving through there. No organization seen at the present time, but it is bringing some very squally weather anywhere from Martinique, Guadeloupe, all the way down through Grenada and down toward Trinidad and Tobago. And as we head all the way over to the African coast, this is that significant tropical wave, and it has moved. It had a lot more convection when it was onshore, and almost a bit of a rotation. Looks like there might be a little bit of an area of low pressure in here, but not a lot of thunderstorm action with it now. So again, no depression imminent here, but it is a big circulation, which will have to be watched very closely as it heads off toward the west. And last but not least, we have Tropical Storm Javier, which is very disorganized and weak, but we'll watch it closely. It could bring some nasty weather to the southern Baja. Stay tuned.
We're tracking a tropical depression in the Gulf tonight. Find out where it is and where it's headed, plus the complete weather picture on Weather Center after your local forecast.
joining us here at the Weather Channel. I'm Christina Abernathy. We've got some wet weather and even some storms to tell you about. We'll have a closer look at those coming up in just a moment. But first, it's time for our tropical update. Let's take a look at the big picture out there. We do have a tropical depression to tell you about and a couple of other areas that we'll look at. But starting out in the Gulf, and you can see the cloudiness here associated with our tropical depression. We'll also be watching an area to the south in the Bay of Campeche, but right now we do have a tropical depression here. We also are watching this area right here, a tropical wave moving through the eastern Caribbean. At this point, just causing some wet weather, not showing any signs of development, at least not right now. We'll continue to watch it, and we'll take a look at what's going on off the west coast of Africa too. But we're going to start you out with the latest coordinates on Tropical Depression 6 as of 10 o'clock Central Time, centered at 25.5 north, 94.5 west. That puts the center about 240 miles southeast of Corpus Christi. The winds are 35 miles per hour. Not seeing much movement at all. It's more or less stationary right now. The pressure is 999 millibars. We do have tropical storm warnings in effect from Brownsville, Texas to High Island, so that means tropical storm conditions are expected during the next 24 hours or possible during the next 24 hours. So there is the possibility that this could strengthen further. Again, we're also expecting some wet weather certainly, and maybe some windy conditions. So this is an area that we're going to continue to watch rather closely here, and you'll want to stay with us. We also have some coastal flood advisories in effect. They are coastal flood warnings here from High Island, Texas, over to the lower Atchafalaya River here in Louisiana. So again, coastal flooding will be a concern here, the water piling up, and that could cause some coastal problems. And again, we saw where those tropical storm warnings are in effect, so you'll want to keep an eye on this as well. We'll look at the big picture here, the satellite view, and what we see is not a very well-defined system here. Again, ill-defined, and still a lot of uncertainty as to where exactly the track will take it. But again, you'll certainly want to keep an eye on it here, and we'll continue to watch it for you as well. We will expect some wet weather again. Some of the rain could be rather heavy. And again, we are watching an area to the south too in the Bay of Campeche, and we'll keep you updated on that as well. As I mentioned, you will have some wet weather here. Already seeing that around Corpus Christi back towards Brownsville, and we will anticipate more wet weather to move into these areas. And again, some of the rain could be rather persistent and rather heavy, so that's going to be a concern for you here in southern Texas and along the coastal areas too. Now we're going to head a bit to the east into the eastern Caribbean, where we are watching a tropical wave here, which is bringing some wet weather to the islands, and that is expected to continue. As far as any development, well, we'll have to watch that and keep an eye on it. Not seeing any signs of organization right now. And as we move a little further to the east, again, just another perspective on the clouds and the rain here. So there's more off to the east, and more could be headed this way, so you will want to watch out for the wet weather here. And finally, off the west coast of Africa, we'll keep an eye on this too. We are seeing some low-level circulation. Any development, well, we'll have to watch for that. If anything does develop, we will let you know. We will certainly be monitoring it here at the Weather Channel. That's it for the Atlantic. Again, we head into the Pacific and watching Tropical Storm Javier, which is centered at 20.8 north, 111.8 west. That puts the center 180 miles southwest of Cabo San Lucas. The wind's 40 miles per hour. It's nearly stationary, and the pressure 997 millibars. We're going to continue to keep an eye on this one, and certainly interest in Baja California will want to keep an eye on it. We'll skip right past this blank satellite view, and maybe we begin to see it fading away. Again, we'll have to put another one in here, but suffice it to say that we'll continue to watch it here, and it may be impacting, or again, we'll have to keep an eye on it. Baja California, still uncertain as to its exact track, but we'll watch again this area too, and we'll keep you posted on all the goings on in the tropics with Javier, and also with Tropical Depression 6 here. If it gets any better organized, we will let you know. A look at the big picture across the rest of the country. We do have rain and storms here with this front that's moving through the southeastern U.S. We've also got some wet weather scattered in the western states, scattered showers and storms here. And finally into the northeast, some wet weather, still a bit of instability here, and that's kept you a little bit soggy in parts of New York and Pennsylvania. Well, stay tuned. Coming up next, we're going to take a closer look at what's going on around the country in Weather Center. Don't go away.
Following in the footsteps of Earl, we have a new tropical depression. We'll have details, plus why you may be pulling out your jacket tonight, just ahead on Weather Center.
When some people have allergies, they sneeze a lot. Others get an itchy, runny nose or nasal congestion. Me, I had it all. So I said to my